The Arizona sun burned merciless as a blacksmith's forge when Wade Holt spotted her, deliberately placed on that sun-blasted rock. Legs missing below the knee, Apache markings clear as wanted posters on her skin, left for the buzzards. His first instinct screamed to ride on. No good ever came from tangling with Apache business. But something in her face, fierce even near death's door, hooked him like a barbed arrow. Wade's hands trembled. Memory ghosts of another time he'd failed to save someone whispering harsh as the desert wind. "Ain't your fight," he muttered, even as he dismounted. But as he lifted her limp form, eyes catching the warrior scars that told stories his tongue couldn't speak, he knew his lonely trail just forked toward Thunderheads. What secrets hide behind a warrior woman's eyes? What demons chase a quiet cowboy's soul? Drop your thoughts, slam that icon, and saddle up for a tale where broken bodies harbor unbroken spirits in the merciless Arizona Badlands. Wade Holt squinted against the merciless Arizona sun, the distant vultures circling like dark omens against the cloudless sky. His mare's ears pricked forward, nervous steps faltering on the rocky trail. Then he saw her, a woman's body deliberately placed on a sun-scorched boulder, legs missing below the knees, even from 30 yards. The distinctive Apache markings on her skin told a story he couldn't fully read but understood well enough. Someone had left her to die. "Just ride on," Wade muttered to himself, fingers tightening on the reins. "Ain't your business what Apache do to their own." But the mare took another step forward, and Wade's gaze locked onto the woman's face. Despite her grievous injuries, her features held a fierce pride, even in unconsciousness. Something in that expression snagged him like a fishhook to the heart. Wade's hands trembled slightly as memory ghosts whispered through his mind. Sarah's face, contorted in childbirth pain, the baby boy who never drew breath, his own useless medical knowledge failing them both, 5 years gone. But the guilt remained fresh as an open wound. "Failed them once," he whispered, the words carried away by the hot desert wind. "Won't fail again." Dismounting with practiced ease, Wade approached cautiously, rifle ready. Apache sometimes left bait for unwary travelers, but no ambush came, just the woman's shallow breathing, her skin burning with fever beneath his tentative touch, the deliberate positioning of her body, legs arranged with ritual care, told him this wasn't accident, but punishment. Wade worked quickly, tearing strips from his spare shirt for bandages. The wounds weren't fresh. Someone had cauterized the stumps days ago, then left her to the elements. Her survival thus far spoke of extraordinary constitution. "Tougher'n rawhide, ain't ya?" he murmured, carefully lifting her onto his horse. Her weight, lighter than expected, sent a pang through his chest. As he mounted behind her, Wade knew his decision crossed lines that couldn't be uncrossed. Helping an Apache meant making enemies of both settlers and natives. The desperate ride to his isolated cabin left a blood trail that would be all too easy to follow. Wade's arms ached from supporting her limp form, his shirt soaked through with her fever sweat. By the time his homestead appeared on the horizon like salvation shimmering in the heat, Wade's mind had already turned to the medicines he'd need, the procedures long unpracticed. In his small, neat cabin, Wade worked through the night, fever medicines brewed from stored herbs, clean bandages applied with hands that grew steadier with each careful movement. The familiar rhythm of healing work, abandoned since Sarah's death, returned like an old, painful friend. "Hang on, warrior woman," he told her unconscious form as the moon rose outside. Ain't your time yet. By dawn, Wade sat exhausted beside his bed, where she lay breathing more evenly. He studied her face in the gray morning light, high cheekbones, strong jaw, intricate tattooed markings of a warrior. Who was she? What had she done to deserve such a fate? Watching her fight for life with every labored breath, Wade realized he'd just tied his fate to a woman who, if she survived, might well try to kill him for his trouble. He leaned back in his chair, rifle across his knees, and prepared for a long, uncertain vigil. 3 days of burning fever followed, Wade snatching sleep in brief stretches between changing bandages and coaxing water between the Apache woman's cracked lips. On the morning of the 4th day, her eyes snapped open without warning, obsidian, dark, instantly alert, despite her condition. Her hand moved with surprising speed toward her hip, seeking weapons that weren't there. Wade raised his palms slowly, keeping his voice level. Easy now. Saved your life. Ain't looking to take it back. A stream of rapid Apache words poured from her lips, tone sharp as broken glass. Wade shook his head, pointing to his ear and shrugging to indicate he didn't understand. The standoff stretched between them, taut as a bowstring. Water? Wade offered, lifting the cup from beside the bed. The woman's eyes narrowed, suspicion radiating from her like heat. Wade took a small sip first to show it wasn't poisoned, then offered it again. After a long, calculating moment, she allowed him to help her drink, her gaze never leaving his face. When she'd drained the cup, Wade gestured to himself, "Wade," then pointed to her with a questioning look. For a moment, he thought she wouldn't respond, but then her lips formed a single word. Saka. Progress. However small. Wade nodded and moved to prepare a thin broth. Conscious of her tracking his every movement, he felt her gaze like a physical weight between his shoulder blades as he worked at the small stove. The moment of true reckoning came when Saka finally gathered enough strength to pull back the blanket and fully comprehend her condition. Her eyes widened, hands moving to the bandaged stumps where her legs ended below the knees. The sound that tore from her throat wasn't quite human, a guttural howl of rage and grief that seemed to shake the cabin walls. Wade stood back, giving her space as she pounded the bed with clenched fists. He recognized the anger, had felt it himself when Sarah died. Better to let it burn through than try to smother it with useless words. When the storm passed, leaving Saka trembling with exhaustion, Wade approached slowly with the broth. Need to eat. Get strong. Her glare could have melted iron. But after a moment, she nodded once, allowing him to help her sit up against the rough wooden headboard. The simple task left her sweating and pale, the reality of her weakness clearly infuriating. That night established their uneasy pattern. Wade slept in his chair, rifle across his lap, one eye never fully closing. Saka lay awake for hours, watching him with unreadable expression, occasionally touching the bandaged stumps as if to confirm their reality. By dawn, fever had seized her again, words in her native tongue spilling from cracked lips. Wade returned to his careful nursing, wiping her brow with cool cloths, murmuring reassurances she probably couldn't hear. "Hang on, Saka," he said, more to himself than to her. "Got plenty of fight left in you, I reckon." As if in response, her hand suddenly gripped his wrist with surprising strength. Her eyes opened, clearer than before, truly seeing him perhaps for the first time. "Why?" she asked, the single English word carrying the weight of many questions. Wade considered his answer carefully. then gave her the only truth he had. Couldn't just leave you there. A long moment passed between them. Something unspoken measured and weighed in her dark eyes. Then Sokka released his wrist and nodded once. Not gratitude exactly, but acknowledgement. The beginnings of an understanding. By nightfall, she was strong enough to take broth without assistance, and Wade caught his first real sleep in days. Though his dreams were troubled by circling vultures and Sarah's accusing eyes. A week passed with gradual improvements. Sokka's English emerged in sparse, carefully chosen words, while Wade's responses remained equally economical. They built a language of necessity, water, medicine, pain, each new word a small bridge across the chasm between their worlds. In his workshop attached to the cabin, Wade began crafting crude mobility aids, hands remembering skills unused since his apprenticeship to a carpenter before the war. Sokka watched from the doorway, supported by the wall, her gaze following every movement of saw and plane. "Apache warrior," she told him one afternoon, thumping her chest with undisguised pride. "Not broken thing." Wade nodded without looking up from his work. "Never said you were broken." When Wade explained his theory that her placement suggested deliberate abandonment rather than accident, something flashed across Sokka's face, a crack in her stoic mask revealing raw betrayal quickly hidden. "New shaman," she said finally, the words bitter as green mesquite. "Say legs gone, spirit broken. Leave me for spirits." Her hands formed fists on her lap. "I show them. Spirit strong." Wade recognized the determination burning in her eyes, had seen it in his own mirror after Sarah died. The will to prove something to those who'd written you off. His trip to Thomas Miller's general store in the small settlement 12 miles away brought uncomfortable attention. Thomas, normally garrulous, asked too many specific questions about Wade's patient. "Heard you were doctoring again," Thomas said, weighing coffee beans with careful precision. "Good to see you using those skills. Just helping someone in need," Wade replied, keeping his tone neutral. "Apache tracks been spotted north of here." Thomas continued casually. "Armies increase in patrols." Wade merely nodded, paid for his supplies, and left. But the curious glances following him through town settled like burrs under his collar. Word was spreading. Time wasn't on their side. Back at the cabin, he found Sokka had dragged herself to the table, sweat beading on her brow from the effort. Something like respect flickered in Wade's chest at her stubborn determination. The unexpected bridge between them appeared that evening when Sokka pointed to Wade's worn family Bible on the shelf. "Your spirit marks?" Wade hesitated, then brought the book to the table. "Sort of sacred writings." Sokka nodded with unexpected understanding. "Like our sacred songs. Different words. Same purpose." She traced the embossed cover with calloused fingers. "Talk to greater spirits." This shared recognition of something beyond the physical world opened a new channel of communication. Wade found himself explaining his former apprenticeship in medicine, carefully avoiding mention of his family. Sokka described Apache healing practices, her English improving with each exchange. By firelight, Wade finally unveiled his creation, primitive crutches designed to fit under Sokka's arms, allowing her to support her weight and move independently. Her face remained impassive, but her white-knuckled grip on the wooden supports revealed her eagerness. "Tomorrow we try," Wade said, setting them within her reach. "Rest tonight." Sokka nodded, eyes never leaving the crutches. "Tomorrow I stand again." As Wade banked the fire for the night, he found himself hoping she would succeed, not just for her sake, but because something in her fierce determination had awakened echoes of the man he'd been before grief hollowed him out. And outside, an owl called 3 times, a warning. According to Apache belief, Sokka had told him. Wade checked his rifle before settling into his chair. The peaceful isolation he'd cultivated for years suddenly felt vulnerable, exposed. How long before someone connected the rumors of an injured Apache with the lone settler who'd recently started visiting town for medical supplies? "We got trouble coming," he murmured to the darkness. From the bed, Sokka's voice replied, soft but steel-edged, "Always trouble come. We ready." Will Sokka's warrior spirit return before the hunters catch her scent? Can Wade's hands craft what her fierce heart needs? Holler your thoughts. Drop that icon, and ride along for the coming storm, when town gossip collides with Apache pride. 2 weeks of grueling determination transformed Sokka's relationship with Wade's handcrafted crutches from awkward dependency to growing mastery. Each day brought painful progress, first standing upright, trembling with effort, then halting circuits of the cabin interior, finally, short journeys to the porch where she would sit for hours. Face lifted to the sun like a flower starved too long of light. Wade watched her progress with quiet approval, making adjustments to the crutches as needed. Her upper body strength, already formidable, increased visibly as she pushed herself through each day's exercises. The warrior spirit she claimed wasn't just words. It powered every painful movement, every bead of sweat, every refused offer of help. Meanwhile, Wade's trips to town grew increasingly uncomfortable. Thomas Miller's questions became less subtle, more pointed. "Heard you got yourself an Indian house guest," Thomas remarked, measuring coffee beans with deliberate slowness. "Apache, they're saying." Wade's denial came too quickly. "People ought to mind their own business. Just passing along what I hear." Thomas shrugged, but his eyes held concern. "Rawlins was in yesterday, asking questions." The name sent a chill through Wade's spine. Caleb Rawlins had made his reputation hunting Apache, collecting bounties and scalps with equal enthusiasm. His presence in town was worse news than any army patrol. "Apache women fighters are rare as desert rain," Thomas continued, voice lowered. "Worth good money to the right people, especially with all the raids lately." "Don't know what you're talking about," Wade insisted, gathering his supplies with forced casualness. "You know, I keep to myself." Thomas's hand briefly touched Wade's arm. "Be careful, friend. Rawlins doesn't care much about who gets hurt when he's tracking bounty." He hesitated, then added quietly, "Man's got debts of his own to settle." Makes him desperate. The ride home stretched Wade's nerves to breaking point. Every distant dust cloud becoming potential pursuit. Every bird call a warning. The territory had grown increasingly dangerous as tensions between settlers and Apache escalated. A lone man harboring an injured Apache warrior woman would find few allies on either side. He returned to find the cabin empty. Panic spiking until he spotted Sokka on the porch, sitting proud and straight-backed in the wooden chair he'd built her. For the first time since her rescue, she looked truly alive, face tilted to catch the afternoon sun, eyes closed in momentary peace. The sight stopped Wade in his tracks. Something painful and tender squeezed his chest, an emotion he'd thought long buried with Sarah and their child. The moment shattered when Sokka opened her eyes, instantly alert to his presence. "Trouble in town," she stated, rather than asked. reading his expression with uncanny accuracy. Inside, Wade shared the news of Rollins' arrival while unpacking supplies. Sokka listened with still intensity, only the tightening of her jaw betraying emotion. "Hunter knows of Sokka," she confirmed. "Many Apache scalps on his belt, many bounties paid. We need to be more careful," Wade insisted. "No more sitting out in the open, no fires at night." Sokka's eyes flashed with sudden ferocity. "Hide like broken bird or fight like Apache?" The argument that followed revealed the growing attachment beneath their practical alliance, Wade's protective instincts clashing with Sokka's warrior pride. Their raised voices echoed through the small cabin, the most words they'd exchanged since her arrival. "They'll kill you just for being Apache," Wade snapped. "Being a woman won't matter. Being injured won't matter." "Then I die as warrior, not scared rabbit," Sokka retorted, knuckles white on her crutches. Their debate was interrupted by the arrival of Sarah Jensen, a widow who ranched 3 miles east. Her horse's approach sent them both into defensive positions, Wade with rifle ready, Sokka with a knife that appeared from nowhere. Sarah's face registered shock when she entered the cabin at Wade's cautious invitation and saw Sokka. To her credit, she recovered quickly. "Heard talk in town," she said simply. "Thought you should know Lieutenant Hollister's patrol is camped at Eagle Creek, 2 days' ride from here." Wade nodded thanks. "Appreciate the warning." Sarah's eyes moved between them, calculating something. "My sister married a Navajo man before the war. Army killed him during a raid that wasn't even his people's doing." She adjusted her shawl. "Not everyone thinks alike out here." After she left, Wade spotted something through the window, unfamiliar tracks near the spring, visible even from distance. Someone had been watching the cabin. Their eyes met in shared understanding. Time was running short that night. Wade began work on something new, more sophisticated mobility devices that might give Sokka greater independence and, if necessary, a fighting chance, using leather straps, wood, and metal fittings from an old saddle. He designed harnesses that would attach to her thighs, with jointed supports that would allow her to move more naturally than with crutches. Sokka watched him work by lamplight, her silence thoughtful rather than hostile. "Why risk for enemy?" she finally asked, the question hanging between them like smoke. Wade continued working, not meeting her eyes. "Told you before, ain't enemies here. Outside this cabin, all enemies," Sokka countered. "Apache, white man, always fighting, always killing." Wade looked up then, hands stilling on his work. "Maybe so. But in here, we're just 2 people trying to survive." Something shifted in Sokka's expression, a softening almost imperceptible in the lamplight. She nodded once, then changed the subject, asking about the new devices taking shape under his hands. As Wade explained his design, demonstrating the movement of the joints with careful precision, Sokka leaned forward with keen interest. Her quick understanding of the mechanical principles surprised him, her mind as sharp as her throwing knives. "Tomorrow I try," she declared, eyeing the unfinished devices with hungry anticipation. "Few more days," Wade corrected. "Need to get them right. No point hurting yourself worse." Sokka accepted this with surprising grace. "Make strong, like Apache bow. Bend, but not break." Before sleep claimed them, Wade shared one last piece of news he'd held back. Lieutenant Hollister's patrol has been seen near White Rock Canyon. 3 days' ride from here. Sokka's expression darkened. "Know this soldier, many Apache dead by his order. If Rollins doesn't find us, the army might," Wade concluded grimly. In the darkness, Sokka's voice came softer than usual. Why you not leave me? Take horse. Ride away. No one know you help Apache woman. The question caught Wade off guard with its simple honesty. He considered his answer carefully, sifting through complex emotions for the clearest truth. Started something, he finally replied. Aim to finish it. A long silence followed, broken only by the distant cry of a coyote. Then Sokka spoke, her words carrying the weight of formal declaration. Sokka not forget. Debt of life, not small thing for Apache. Wade smiled faintly in the darkness. Get some sleep. Tomorrow's soon enough for debts, but sleep proved elusive for both, each contemplating the narrowing options before them, and the unexpected bond forming, despite every reason it shouldn't exist. The discovery came without warning, Sokka spotting the first rattlesnake from her position on the porch while Wade worked on fence repairs nearby. Her sharp warning froze him mid-step, the snake's rattle rising like angry percussion in the still afternoon. Do not move, she commanded, voice low and steady. Her hand already gripped the knife Wade had returned to her days earlier, a gesture of trust that now seemed prophetic. Wade held perfectly still as the snake coiled, its diamond pattern rippling with deadly intent. Behind it, a second rattler slithered from beneath the workshop steps, drawn by the first's agitation. What happened next revealed their potential as partners. Sokka's knife flew with deadly precision, pinning the first snake to the dirt a heartbeat before it struck. Simultaneously, Wade's revolver cleared its holster, his shot taking the second rattler's head clean off. The coordination required no planning, no discussion, just instinctive understanding of each other's capabilities. In the ringing silence that followed, their eyes met in shared surprise at their perfect synchronization. Sokka's rare smile flashed quick as lightning. Good fight, cowboy. Wade nodded, holstering his weapon. Not bad yourself. He approached the workshop cautiously, prodding with a long stick. Likely a den underneath. Need to clear them all. The next hour revealed their first true partnership as they systematically eliminated the rattlesnake nest. Sokka directed from her position on the porch, her tactical eye noting hiding places Wade might have missed, while he executed the dangerous work of drawing out and dispatching each serpent. 7 snakes later, Wade stepped back, sweat soaking his shirt despite the cool spring air. Think that's the last of them? Sokka nodded, satisfaction evident in her posture. Apache believe rattlesnake is warning, spirit messenger. Warning about what? Wade asked, cleaning his blade on a rag. Danger coming. Her eyes lifted to the ridge beyond the cabin. Like that one. Wade spun, following her gaze to a figure on horseback watching from the distant rise, vanishing before he could raise his rifle. The sighting chilled him more than the snakes had. They were being observed. By afternoon, Wade had tracked the observer far enough to confirm his suspicions. The prints showed both white man's boots and moccasins working together. A bounty hunter with an Apache tracker. Worse yet, subtle signs in the tracker's path suggested deliberate warning marks, stones arranged in patterns a trained eye would recognize. Someone's warning us? Wade asked when he returned to explain his findings. Sokka studied the rough sketch he'd made of the stone pattern. Old fox, she said finally. Elder tracker. Rollins force him to help. Her finger traced the arrangement. This means 3 sons, 3 days before they come. Wade's brow furrowed. Why would he warn us if he's working for Rollins? Old Fox lost family to soldiers, not settlers. Sokka's expression turned contemplative. He sees difference between enemies. That evening, they prepared for inevitable discovery. Wade brought Sokka his old revolver. Watching as she checked its action with practiced hands. "You've used one before," he observed. "Took from dead ranger," she replied matter-of-factly. "Learn quick or die." Wade set up targets behind the cabin, tin cans on fence posts at varying distances. Sokka's accuracy, even from seated position, startled him. 5 shots, 5 cans down, the last at nearly 40 yards. "Where'd you learn to shoot like that?" he asked, impressed despite himself. Was warrior before legs, still warrior now. The simple statement carried undeniable truth, prompting Wade's next question. "What kind of warrior? Most Apache women I've heard of don't lead war parties." Sokka's eyes measured him, weighing something in her mind before answering. Sokka different. Father teach riding, shooting, tracking when small. Later, tribe see usefulness. A shadow crossed her face. Until legs gone. That night brought unexpected vulnerability as they faced possible last hours of peace. Wade shared his precious coffee, boiling the last of his stores while rain began pattering on the roof. The drumming water created an intimate cocoon around their conversation as Sokka taught him Apache words for courage and strength. Their planning session revealed Sokka's tactical brilliance, surprising Wade with her knowledge of defensive positions and sight lines. She directed him to move furniture, creating barricades near windows where a defender could shoot while remaining protected. "How you know such things?" Wade finally asked as they studied her rough map of the cabin and surrounding area, marked with potential approaches and defensive positions. Sokka's fingers traced the cabin's outline on the table. "Led many fights against soldiers, know how they think, how they attack." She tapped spots where attackers would likely seek cover. "Rollins smart, but thinks like hunter. Hollister thinks like soldier. Different danger." The revelation stunned Wade. "You led fights? Against the army?" "Yes. No pride or boasting. Just simple acknowledgement. Many victories, until—" Her hand moved unconsciously to her missing legs. "Tomorrow," Wade said quietly. "Tell me tomorrow." He understood intuitively that this was a story requiring its own time and space. Rain intensified outside, lightning occasionally illuminating the cabin in harsh white flashes, their preparations complete. They sat in companionable silence, broken only by thunder. The storm matched their situation, forces gathering, inevitable collision approaching. "If they come," Wade said finally, "we're outnumbered. Might be smarter to leave." Sokka's expression hardened. "Where Apache woman with no legs go, no tribe will take. Settlers will kill." "We could try for Mexico," Wade suggested. "People there might not care as much about—" "No." The word fell final as a judge's gavel. Sokka not run. Already died once when tribe left. Better real death than running death. Wade studied her face in the lamplight, the proud jaw, the unflinching eyes, the warrior markings that told stories he was only beginning to understand. Something shifted in his chest, a recognition that her stubborn pride matched his own, that perhaps they were more alike than different. "Then we stay," he conceded. "But we're smarter than them. Use your head, not just courage." Sokka nodded, a rare smile touching her lips. "Apache way also. Fight with mind first, then hands." As they made final preparations for sleep, checking weapons and barricades one last time, Sokka watched Wade with unusual intensity. "Tomorrow I tell," she said abruptly. "If we live." Wade understood she meant her full story, the mystery of who she had been before he found her dying on that sun-baked rock. "Deal," he replied, settling into his chair by the door, rifle across his knees. Their hands almost touched across the rough-hewn table, almost, but not quite, as night settled heavy with promise and threat. The storm's fury gradually subsiding to gentle rainfall that whispered secrets neither was ready to hear. Rain drummed against the cabin roof as dawn broke gray and misty. Neither Wade nor Sokka had slept much. The weight of coming confrontation pressing on them both, with defenses prepared and nothing left but waiting. Sokka finally spoke the words Wade had been anticipating. "I tell now, about before." Wade settled into his chair, giving her his full attention. The steady rainfall created a private world, intimate and isolated from the dangers gathering beyond their walls. "I was not just warrior," Sokka began, firelight dancing across her proud features. "Was war leader, tactical mind that many men followed." Her eyes took on a distant quality, seeing beyond the cabin walls to a past life. Tribe follow Sokka when raids needed, when soldiers threaten, when paths must be chosen. Wade listened in silent amazement as she described strategies that had outmaneuvered cavalry patrols, ambushes that had allowed her people to defend their territory against overwhelming odds. Her tactical intelligence had earned her an unprecedented position for an Apache woman, respected war leader whose council chiefs heeded. "Then came battle near White Rock Canyon," she continued, voice hardening. "Hollister's men have new weapons. Many Apache die." Her hands gripped the edge of the table. "Horse shot from under me. Cannon shell explode. Take legs, not life." Wade winced, imagining the brutality of such a wound in battle conditions. Medicine man save life, stop blood, but new shaman see opportunity. Here her face darkened with remembered betrayal. He say warrior with no legs has broken spirit. Say bad omen for tribe to follow broken leader. "Politics," Wade said quietly. "Same everywhere," Sokka nodded. "New shaman want my place at council, want my voice silent." Her bitter smile held no humor. "Easier to remove broken woman than strong one." "So they left you to die." Wade's voice carried quiet anger. "Ritual death, place on spirit rock. Let sun and sky take what remains." Her shoulders straightened despite the painful memories. But Sokka not ready for spirit world. The intimate confession hung between them. The most words Sokka had spoken at once since her arrival. The silence that followed felt weighted with understanding. Her fierce determination to master the crutches, her refusal of pity, her insistence on contributing despite her disability. All pieces of a proud warrior reclaiming herself after the ultimate betrayal. "Your turn," she said finally, eyes fixing on Wade with quiet intensity. "Your ghosts. The woman's name you say in sleep." Wade's throat tightened. 5 years since he'd spoken of Sarah aloud, the wound still raw despite the passage of time, but Sokka had shared her truth. He owed her the same honesty. "Her name was Sarah," he began, voice rough. "My wife. She died in childbirth. The baby, too." The pain surfaced fresh as he described his apprenticeship to a doctor before the war. His return to find Sarah waiting, their dreams of a family and healing practice. "Complications came too fast. Bleeding I couldn't stop." His hands clenched involuntarily, remembering their uselessness that terrible night. "Nearest doctor 2 days' ride, no time." "So you carry guilt," Sokka observed, not unkindly, "like burden on back." Wade nodded, unable to speak for a moment. "Been running from doctoring ever since," he finally admitted. Until I found you. Why help enemy? She asked again, the question gaining new significance in light of their shared revelations. Wade considered his answer carefully. Maybe needed to save someone to forgive myself. Maybe just couldn't watch another person die if I could help. He met her eyes directly. Don't know that we were ever really enemies. Sokka. Lightning flashed, briefly illuminating the cabin in stark white light. In that flash, something unspoken passed between them, recognition of two souls marked by loss. Finding unexpected connection across boundaries that should have separated them. Meanwhile in town, Thomas Miller wrestled with temptation as Rollins increased his offer. The bounty hunter's cold eyes assessed Miller across the general store counter, the bag of coins making a heavy sound as he dropped it. $500 for information leading to capture of an Apache woman warrior, Rollins repeated. Don't much care what condition she's in, long as she's breathing when I collect the bounty. Thomas stared at the money, thinking of the debt collector's threats, the mortgage notice, his wife's illness requiring expensive medicine from back east. Haven't seen any Apache woman, he said, the half-truth bitter on his tongue. Strange, Rollins mused, fingering the scalps at his belt casually. Because my tracker found signs leading toward your friend Holt's place, man who's suddenly buying medical supplies after years of barely coming to town. Thomas felt cold sweat forming on his brow. Wade keeps to himself, has since his wife died. Then you won't mind showing us the way tomorrow, Rollins suggested. The request clearly not optional. Just to clear things up? After Rollins left, Thomas stood frozen behind his counter, the weight of betrayal heavy on his shoulders. Wade had been a friend, distant these past years, but still one of the few decent men in the territory. But Thomas's family needed that money, needed it desperately. Back at the cabin, the rain continued falling as night deepened. Wade presented Sokka with his completed work, ingenious leather harnesses and modified crutches that would allow her to move with surprising agility. The devices incorporated joints that would bend with her movement, support straps that distributed her weight more efficiently, and hand grips positioned for both movement and potential weapon use. Try, he offered, holding them out. Sokka's testing of the devices became a kind of dance, muscles flexing as she discovered new freedom. The determination on her face gave way gradually to something close to joy as she maneuvered around the cabin with unprecedented ease. Good medicine, she pronounced, running her hands along the carefully shaped wood and leather. Strong like Apache bow. They'll need adjusting as you get used to them, Wade explained, watching her movement with professional satisfaction. But should give you more independence. Their eyes met across the room, something unspoken passing between them that transcended helper and helped. They had become something neither could quite name, more than allies, different from friends. Tomorrow they come, Sokka said, lowering herself to sit by the fire. Tomorrow, we show what broken things can do. Outside, the storm intensified again, thunder crashing overhead as if in agreement. Wade stoked the fire one last time before settling into his guard position. But tonight, instead of keeping cautious distance, Sokka moved her bedding near his chair. Sleep, she told him. Sokka watch first. The simple gesture of trust affected Wade more deeply than he expected, as he reluctantly surrendered to exhaustion. Sokka reached for his hand, their first deliberate touch. Calloused fingers intertwining as thunder crashed overhead. In the final moments before sleep claimed him, Wade realized with startling clarity that for the first time in 5 years, he had something to lose again, something worth fighting for. Can a legless warrior and a haunted cowboy stand against 6 bounty hunters and an army patrol. Drop your predictions, slam that icon, and hold tight for the most gut-wrenching showdown this side of the Gila River dawn brought. Unexpected ally, Sarah Jensen, riding hard through morning mist, her horse lathered despite the cool air. Wade met her outside, rifle ready, while Sokka positioned herself by the window, revolver concealed but accessible. Rollins gathered 6 men, Sarah announced without preamble, dismounting with practiced ease. They're coming for your Apache woman. Left town at first light. The news wasn't surprising, but her next words were, "Thomas sold you out. Wade." Her expression showed disappointment rather than shock. His wife's medicine costs more than he can make in a year. Rollins offered $500. Wade absorbed this betrayal with a grim nod. Figured someone would talk eventually. "There's more," Sarah continued, accepting the cup of coffee Wade offered. "Thomas didn't tell them she's lost her legs, said he didn't know details, just that you were treating an injured Apache. Figure that buys you some advantage they ain't expecting." Inside the cabin, Sarah's reaction to Sokka was admirably controlled, surprise flickering briefly before her practical nature reasserted itself. She studied the mobility devices Wade had created with genuine interest. "Clever work," she commented. "My father lost a foot in the war. Could have used something like this." Sokka measured the woman with cautious eyes before offering a slight nod of acknowledgement. Sarah laid out what else she knew. Lieutenant Hollister's patrol had made camp at Eagle Creek, just 2 days' ride away. They were searching for an Apache raiding party, reported to have attacked a supply wagon further north. "So we're caught between them," Wade concluded grimly. "You could come to my place," Sarah offered unexpectedly. "I've got that root cellar. Could hide you both until they move on." The look passing between Wade and Sokka needed no translation. "We stand," Wade confirmed. "This is home now." Sarah didn't argue, recognizing the resolution in their faces. Instead, she shared one more crucial piece of information. "Lieutenant Hollister isn't what you'd expect," she said carefully. "His sister married an Apache man before the war. Army didn't know when they recruited him. By the time they found out, he'd proven himself too valuable to dismiss." "Why tell us this?" Wade asked. "Because he's a man who might think twice about simple orders." Sarah adjusted her shawl. "Might be worth remembering, if it comes to facing him." After Sarah departed, refusing their invitation to stay safely with them, Wade and Sokka began transforming the homestead into a cunning defensive position under Sokka's direction. Her tactical brilliance emerged in full as she directed Wade to create tripwires from fishing line, fashion simple alarms from tin cans and wire, and position furniture to create protected shooting positions. "Led war parties against cavalry," she explained when Wade expressed surprise at her detailed knowledge. "Same fight, different legs." By midday, the cabin and surrounding yard had become a carefully prepared battlefield. Escape routes were planned, ammunition distributed to strategic points, water and emergency supplies positioned for accessibility during a prolonged standoff. Watching Sokka move through the cabin using her new mobility devices, calling out instructions with the confidence of a born commander, Wade felt a surprising sense of pride. Her adaptation to catastrophic injury, her refusal to surrender to limitation, awakened his admiration in ways he hadn't expected. "You're remarkable," he said simply, the words escaping before he could consider them. Sokka paused, unused to praise. "Survival, not remarkable. Natural as breathing." "Not just surviving," Wade corrected. "Leading, planning, thinking 10 steps ahead of them." Something softened briefly in her expression before her warrior's focus returned. "Save praise for after fight." if we live. The afternoon brought ominous signs, dust clouds visible on the eastern horizon, still distant but unmistakable. Rollins and his men would arrive by morning. And from the northwest, another faint dust trail suggested Hollister's patrol might be changing course, perhaps responding to rumors of an Apache woman in the area. Caught between hammer and anvil, Wade observed grimly. Sokka's response carried unexpected wisdom. Space between hammer and anvil is where metal becomes strong. Her eyes met his with calm certainty. We become strong tomorrow. As sunset painted the western sky in fierce oranges and purples, they completed their preparations. Wade loaded every firearm they possessed, his rifle, 2 revolvers, and an old shotgun. Sokka prepared her knives, sharpening each to razor edge before positioning them for quick access. The preparation ritual became intimate declaration as he helped secure her mobility devices for combat, adjusting straps for maximum maneuverability. Their hands worked together with practiced ease, as if they'd been partners for years rather than weeks. No flowery words passed between them, just simple truth as thunder rumbled in the distance. "Never figured to fight alongside Apache warrior," Wade said quietly. Sokka's response carried equal weight. "Never figured to live because of white man's hands." Their foreheads touched briefly before they separated to their positions, a promise without words as night fell and the first distant hoofbeats rumbled like approaching thunder. In the darkness, Wade found Sokka checking her revolver one final time by lamplight. The flame caught the warrior markings on her face. She had painted traditional patterns earlier, fingers tracing designs that connected her to ancestors and battles long past. "My people believe warrior's spirit joins those who came before," she said without looking up. "If I die tomorrow, we'll find my father's spirit, not bad thing." "Nobody's dying tomorrow," Wade insisted. Though they both recognized the hollow promise, Sokka finally looked up, meeting his eyes with unexpected gentleness. "If die, glad to have known Wade Holt." After a slight pause, she added, "Sarah would be proud of hands that heal." The simple statement struck deeper than any elaborate declaration could have. Wade swallowed hard against sudden emotion. "Get some rest," he managed finally. "Morning comes early." They extinguished the lamp and settled into darkness, each to their assigned position, Wade by the front window, Sokka covering the rear approach. Between them lay weapons, water, and the shared understanding that tomorrow would transform them both, one way or another. Outside, coyotes called to each other across the darkness, their voices rising and falling like questions without answers. Inside, 2 unlikely allies waited in silence, listening to the night and to the steadying rhythm of each other's breathing. Dawn broke with pale fire across the eastern horizon, revealing dust clouds from 2 directions, Rollins and his hunters from the east, Hollister's patrol from the northwest. They arrived nearly simultaneously, as if orchestrated by some cosmic playwright with a taste for dramatic timing. Sokka directed their defense from her elevated position on the porch. Having insisted this vantage point gave her both mobility and visibility. Wade moved between prepared positions with deadly purpose, his face set in lines of grim determination. "6 with Rollins," he reported in low tones. 4 soldiers with Hollister. "Wait," Sokka commanded. "Let them show hand first." The hunters' shock at finding themselves facing organized resistance registered clearly across the yard. Rollins, a weathered man with scalps dangling obscenely from his belt, clearly expected to find an isolated settler easily intimidated, not a fortified position with multiple firing angles. Lieutenant Hollister's patrol, halted at respectful distance, the young officer's immaculate uniform contrasting sharply with the bounty hunter's ragged appearance. His eyes narrowed as he assessed the situation, recognizing the tactical preparation evident in the homestead's defense. "Holt," Rollins called out, "we know you're harboring an Apache woman. Hand her over, and there won't be trouble." Wade remained silent, catching Sokka's eye for confirmation before responding. Her slight nod encouraged him to follow their plan. "Private property," Wade replied evenly. "No one here looking for visitors." Hollister urged his horse forward slightly, maintaining careful distance from Rollins' group. "Mr. Holt, I'm Lieutenant James Hollister. If you're sheltering any Apache connected to the raiding party that attacked the supply wagon at Griffin Creek, I'm authorized to take them into custody." The trap was set. Sokka had anticipated this accusation, knowing that any Apache would be presumed guilty. "Apache woman here hasn't raided anything," Wade called back. "Been here recovering from injuries for weeks. Couldn't have been at Griffin Creek." Rollins spat contemptuously. "Army don't need your permission to search for hostiles, Holt. And I've got legal bounty rights on any warrior Apache." The standoff tightened as both groups edged closer. Old Fox, the aging Apache tracker, forced to assist Rollins, deliberately lagged behind, his posture suggesting reluctance that only Sokka recognized. What followed unfolded with the precision of a choreographed dance. Rollins signaled 2 men to circle behind the cabin, directly into the first tripwire. The shotgun trap triggered by their stumble took one hunter down immediately, his scream shattering the morning stillness. The battle erupted in earnest, Rollins' men diving for cover as Wade's rifle cracked with deadly accuracy. Sokka directed the defense with hand signals, her revolver dropping a hunter who tried flanking the porch, Old Fox, supposedly guiding Rollins to advantageous position, deliberately led him into the second prepared trap, a hidden pit that caused the bounty hunter to stumble within range of Sokka's throwing knife. Midst the chaos, Thomas Miller arrived unexpected. His conscience had won the final battle over fear and greed. His warning about Rollins' planned rear attack saved Wade from ambush, but cost Thomas a bullet to the shoulder. Lieutenant Hollister, witnessing Rollins' dishonorable tactics and the skillful defense mounted by Wade and Sokka, made the crucial choice, ordering his men to stand down rather than join the assault. "This is no military action," he declared, loud enough for all to hear. "This is murder for bounty." The final confrontation narrowed to Rollins and Wade in the dust-choked yard. Classic showdown with Sokka's thrown knife turning the tide just as Rollins drew his second hidden pistol. The blade buried itself in the bounty hunter's wrist with surgical precision, his shot going wild as he howled in pain. Wade's bullet finished what Sokka's knife began. Rollins fell and did not rise again. The remaining hunters, seeing their leader fall and facing determined resistance with no army support, retreated in disarray, carrying their wounded. As dust settled on the transformed landscape, Hollister approached alone, hands clearly visible. "That Apache woman," he said quietly, nodding toward Sokka. "The one who just saved your life with that knife throw. I don't see her. Do you understand me? Mr. Holt, far as the Army's concerned, there's no Apache here, just a settler defending his homestead from bounty hunters operating outside the law." Their eyes met in silent understanding before Hollister tipped his hat respectfully toward Sokka and led his patrol away. Their victory came blood-soaked but complete, Rollins dead, remaining hunters fled. Hollister tacitly acknowledging their right to be left alone. Dust settled on a transformed landscape, physical and emotional. The morning's violence gave way to quiet aftermath as Wade tended Thomas's wound. his medical skills flowing naturally after years of avoidance. Thomas's debt to them was paid in blood and courage. His choice to warn them, rather than complete his betrayal, restoring something broken between the men. "Never meant for any of this," Thomas murmured, as Wade finished bandaging his shoulder. "Know that," Wade replied simply. "We're square now." Lieutenant Hollister's parting words had promised unofficial protection. "Far as Army's concerned, no Apache woman here, just settlers defending homestead." His recognition of their right to exist, undisturbed, felt fragile yet real. A small victory against a world determined to keep them apart. Over the following days, they rebuilt what the battle had damaged. Wade crafted new, improved mobility devices for Sokka during her recovery, each iteration granting her more independence. The partnership, forged in desperation, evolved into something neither had names for, something that transcended ally, friend, or companion. One evening, a week after the battle, they sat together on the rebuilt porch, watching the sunset paint the western sky in breathtaking crimsons and golds. Sokka used her new devices with growing confidence, moving with a grace that belied her disability. "Tribe cast out because broken," she reflected, watching the fading light. "Found new tribe of two." Wade's response came with a rare smile, the lines around his eyes softening. "Reckon we're both pretty broken. Makes us fit together better." No grand declarations passed between them, just her hand finding his as purple shadows claimed the land. Two souls who had found belonging in the most unlikely place faced their future together on a frontier that had tried to break them both and ultimately made them whole. The final image, their silhouettes against the fading light, showed two figures, physically mismatched but spiritually aligned, connected by a journey neither could have imagined, and stronger for every scar they carried. Folks, I ain't much for pretty words, but this tale of Sokka and Wade has been tearing at my insides like barbed wire since first I heard it whispered round campfires in Arizona territory. Ain't just another shoot-'em-up yarn. It's about what makes us human when life strips everything else away. See? The frontier's got a way of reducing folks to their bare-bones truth. Some break under that pressure, like them tribal leaders who abandoned a warrior just 'cause she lost her legs. Others find strength they never knew they had, like a quiet cowboy haunted by ghosts who finally stopped running from his healing hands. What sticks with me most ain't the gunplay or the blood, though Lord knows there was plenty. It's that moment Wade finished those first crude crutches, and Sokka's face showed that fierce light of someone who refuses to stay broken. Or when she saved his life with that thrown knife, proving a warrior's heart beats just as strong with or without legs to stand on. Truth is, we're all missing pieces of ourselves out here in these badlands. Some wounds you can see plain as day, like Sokka's missing legs. Others hide deeper, like Wade's heart scarred from failing to save his family. But this tale taught me something worth more than gold dust. It ain't about what parts you're missing, but what you build with what remains. Their story reminds us that strength comes in forms we don't expect. And home ain't always where you started. Sometimes it's who you end up beside after the smoke clears. Sometimes it's another damaged soul whose broken edges somehow fit perfect against your own. I'm much obliged you rode along this dusty trail with me. Ain't many tales worth the tellin' these days. But this one matters more than most. What piece of this story branded itself deepest in your heart? Was it Sokka's refusal to be defined by what she'd lost? Wade's journey from guilt to purpose? Or maybe how they built something neither could have managed alone? Drop your thoughts, Leave your mark, and follow for more tales from where civilization's edges fray and the human spirit shows its truest colors.